You are 56 years old and you have never lost a battle. This is not because you are a great general. It is because the Korean People's Army has not fought a real war since 1953, which was before you were born, and in the absence of actual combat, the definition of a great general becomes something else entirely. It becomes loyalty. It becomes ceremony. It becomes the ability to stand in the correct posture at the correct moment and display the correct quantity of devotion on your face. You have been exceptional at this for 30 years. Your rank is Vice Marshal. You have 4 stars and a chest full of decorations, several of which you received for operations that did not happen, and victories that were not victories, and threats that were not carried out. You know which decorations these are. You wear them all with identical straightness. Your father was a colonel. His father fought at the Kosin Reservoir in 1950 alongside Chinese forces and carried a scar on his left forearm for the rest of his life and never spoke about it. Military service is not something your family chose. It is something your family is. There was no other version of your life available to you, and you understood this early enough that you stopped thinking of it as a constraint and began thinking of it as identity, which is a more comfortable way to carry something you cannot put down. You are good at finding comfortable ways to carry things. You understand the Korean People's Army the way a doctor understands a patient they have treated for decades. You know where it is strong. You know where it performs strength it does not have. You know the difference between these two things with the precision of someone whose life depends on performing the same distinction in the opposite direction. Appearing strong in the presence of strength you know is hollow. The Army has 1.2 million soldiers on active duty. This is the number that appears in every official document, every briefing prepared for the Supreme Leader, every statement issued to the international press through whatever channel is currently open. 1.2 million, the 4th largest standing army on Earth. The number is not false. The soldiers exist. You have seen them. You have reviewed them on parade grounds in Pyongyang where their boots are polished and their rifles are held at identical angles and their faces carry the specific expression of men who have been trained to perform readiness so consistently that the performance has replaced the thing it was meant to represent. What the number does not contain: the 23rd Infantry Division in South Hamgyong Province, which has been running at 67% ration allocation for 14 months because the provincial party secretary redirected the food supply contracts to a processing facility his nephew manages. You know this because you reviewed the divisional logistics audit in March. You know the audit will not be acted on because the provincial party secretary's uncle sits on the organization and guidance department. You filed the audit. It was received. Nothing happened. You did not ask why nothing happened. The artillery units along the DMZ, whose ammunition stocks have not been fully replenished since 2019, not because of sanctions, though sanctions are the explanation that appears in every briefing, but because the replenishment contracts pass through a procurement chain that extracts between 18 and 24% at each transfer point, and by the time the allocation reaches the unit commanders, the shells that were budgeted for have become something between 3/4 and 2/3 of the shells that arrive. The remainder has become apartments in Pyongyang and tuition fees for children studying in China. The Mechanized Corps, whose vehicle maintenance schedules exist entirely on paper. You inspected 3 battalions in the Western Sector 18 months ago. Of 47 armored vehicles on the active roster, 31 were operational. Of those 31, you assessed 11 as fully combat-ready in the sense that they would function under sustained operational conditions rather than for the duration of a parade. The inspection report you submitted used different language. It described the Corps as maintaining strong operational readiness with identified areas for improvement. This is the language the reports use. You wrote the language. The language is not false. It is structured so that the truth it contains is not the truth that gets read. The parade happens every year on April 15th. You have attended 31 of them. You will attend this one standing 3 positions to the left of the reviewing stand, in the 2nd row of senior officers, which is a position that means you are important enough to be seen in the footage, but not important enough to be in the frame that gets broadcast internationally. You understand your position precisely. You have spent 30 years navigating a system in which your position is always precisely understood and never openly acknowledged, and you have developed for this an accuracy that you think of as your actual professional skill. More accurate than tactics, more reliable than logistics, more essential than any military competency you have ever been tested on. The missiles roll past. They are real. You want to be precise about this. The missiles are real. The warheads are real. The nuclear program that makes the international community negotiate rather than act is real and functional, and represents a genuine strategic achievement that you can acknowledge privately, while acknowledging privately that it is also the reason every other part of the military has been allowed to decay. When the deterrent works, the conventional forces become ceremonial. When the conventional forces become ceremonial, the budget that was allocated to them becomes available for other purposes. When the budget becomes available, the system that distributes it operates according to the rules all such systems operate according to. You were not present for the decision that started this chain. You have been present for all of its consequences. The soldiers march in perfect columns. You watch them with the eyes of a man who knows exactly what is real and exactly what is performance in what he is watching, and you hold your face in the expression that this moment requires, which is pride, which is resolve, which is the specific quality of a man who has never doubted and will never doubt, and whose certainty is a physical characteristic, like height. You are very good at this face. You have been making this face since you were 26 years old, and you are not certain anymore that it is a face you are making. There is a meeting every quarter with the general staff. You sit in the third seat on the left side of the table. The briefings are delivered by officers who are younger than you and who have learned as you learned which numbers to use and which language to structure them in. You listen to the briefings the way you imagine a translator listens to a speech in a language they speak natively, tracking not the surface meaning, but the gap between the surface meaning and what the words actually contain, the distance between the performance and the reality it is covering. The readiness assessments are positive. The training cycles are described as completed. The fuel allocation issues are described as being actively managed. The food supply situation in the northern provinces is described using a formulation that means something has gone wrong, but the wrong thing has been assigned a classification that prevents it from being discussed as wrong in this room. You hear this formulation, and you note it, and you continue to listen, and you contribute when it is your turn to contribute observations that are accurate and framed in the same structural language as the observations that preceded them. After the meeting, there is a reception. You eat. You speak with colleagues about their families, about a posting that has been announced, about a construction project near the military academy that has been ongoing for 3 years. One of your colleagues, a man you have known for 20 years, a man whose professional judgment you respect more than almost anyone else at this table, catches your eye across the room for a moment. It is a very brief moment. Neither of you says anything. You both look away. The conversation continues. You have been having this conversation without words for a long time. You have a son. He is 28. He is a lieutenant in the 4th Corps, which is posted in the western sector near Kaesong. You have used your position carefully and through channels that leave no visible trace of personal intervention to ensure that his assignments have kept him away from the most exposed positions along the DMZ. You have also used your position to ensure that his ration allocation is processed through a different supply chain than the one the 23rd Division in South Hamgyong Province uses. You know what you have done. You did it without thinking of it as corruption, because it is not corruption in the formal sense, and because every man at your level does the same thing, and because the alternative, which is not doing it, is a different kind of decision that you are not prepared to examine closely. He calls you on your approved communication channel on Sunday evenings. He talks about his unit. He talks about training exercises. He uses the language of the reports, which he has learned as all officers learn it, and through this language you understand what is actually happening in his unit with the accuracy of a man who wrote the language himself. His unit is under strength. His vehicles have maintenance issues. His soldiers are not hungry in the acute sense, but they are not well fed in the sense that soldiers who may be asked to fight should be well fed. He sounds fine. He sounds like a young officer who has found his footing and is performing his role with competence and some degree of genuine satisfaction. He sounds like you did at 28. This is not reassuring in the way that it should be reassuring. The supreme leader is briefed on military readiness every month. You are not in the room for these briefings. The officers who are in the room are more senior than you or more trusted than you, which in this system are often different criteria. What you know about the briefings you know from the documents that flow downward after them, the directives, the priority adjustments, the sudden urgent requests for data about specific programs or units that indicate what question was asked and therefore what answer was given. From these documents, you can construct with reasonable accuracy what the supreme leader believes about the military he commands. He believes the artillery units are fully stocked. He believes the mechanized corps is at operational readiness. He believes the ration system is functioning within acceptable parameters in all provinces. He believes, because he has been told, and the telling has been consistent for long enough that the consistency has become a kind of evidence, that the Korean People's Army is a force capable of the operations it is described as capable of in every briefing he has received for the past decade. You do not know whether he knows that what he has been told is structured to be technically accurate rather than operationally true. You do not know whether the men in the room with him know that he knows this, or whether they believe the briefings they deliver, or whether the entire architecture of information that reaches that room has been running on the same structural language for so long that the men who built it have forgotten they built it and now experience it as reality. You think about this on some evenings and then you stop thinking about it, because thinking about it to its conclusion leads to a place that is not useful to be. You will retire in 4 years. This is not a decision you have made. It is a timeline you have understood by reading the patterns of appointments around you, the ages of officers being elevated, the signals that indicate where you sit in the sequence. You will receive a ceremony. You will receive a commendation. You will move to a residence in a good district of Pyongyang, and you will have access to the distribution channels that retired senior officers have access to, and you will be comfortable. You will not write a memoir. You will not speak to foreign journalists. You will not make the kind of contact with the outside that the men in the windowless rooms would find interesting. This is not a calculation you have performed consciously. It is simply the next thing in the sequence, the way every next thing has been the next thing in the sequence, one careful step after another, through a landscape you have learned to read so precisely that you no longer experience it as dangerous. Your son will advance. You will ensure this through channels that leave no visible trace. He will learn what you have learned. He will learn to read the language of the reports. He will learn which face to make on the reviewing stand. He will learn where the boundaries of professional curiosity are without being told where they are, because this is how the boundaries are learned, by approaching them and feeling them in the dark. He will be very good at this. He will be a great general. Somewhere in Pyongyang right now, a 26-year-old officer is receiving his first significant posting. He has come from a good family. His grandfather served. His father served. Military service is not something he chose, it is something he is, and he understood this early enough that he stopped thinking of it as a constraint. He is technically capable. He is politically reliable. He has learned, in the way all young officers learn, to perform readiness with a consistency that has already begun to replace the thing it was meant to represent. He will write his first report next month. He will use the language he has been taught. The language will be accurate. The truth it contains will not be the truth that gets read. He doesn't know yet what he knows. He will be exceptional at not knowing it. This is a work of fiction, but the Korean People's Army's structural decay is real. The diversion of military food allocations to political cadres is documented by defector testimony and satellite analysis. The gap between North Korea's declared military capability and its actual operational readiness is assessed as significant by analysts in Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. The corruption inside the officer procurement chains is real. And somewhere, right now, a man in a uniform is standing at attention in a room where everyone is applauding something that stopped being real a long time ago.